We're on Zion Hay. The pomegranate of which Rabbi spoke of is neither small nor large, but of medium size. If so, in what regard were the pomegranates of Badin mentioned? That a forbidden pomegranate of Badin prohibits an entire mixture of any amount. These are the words of Rav Meir. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nori says they were mentioned in regard to measuring with them holes and utensils. Rabbi Akiva says it was mentioned for this and for that to measure with them holes and utensils, and that a forbidden pomegranate of Badin prohibits an entire mixture of any amount. Rav Yossi said the pomegranates of Badin and the leeks of Geba were not mentioned except in regard that they should be tied in so as certain masa everywhere. The egg of which the rabbi spoke is neither large nor small, but of medium size. Rabbi Yehuda says one brings the very largest egg and the very smallest egg, places them in water, divides the water. Rabbi Yossi says, but who can inform me which is the largest and which is the smallest? Rather, all depends on the estimation of the examiner. And the dried figs of which the rabbi spoke is neither large nor small, but of medium size. And Rabbi Yehuda says the largest one of Eretz Israel is equal to the medium-sized one in other countries. Okay.
Okay. Now on to kazayas. Okay, we've got lots of measures of kazayas in halacha. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but when we're talking about the kazayas, shamru lo gadol v'lo katan ela beinoni ze aguri. Okay, it's the you get big olives, you get small olives, and the aguri olive is basically the medium type of olive, it's pretty clear that this is it's an average size olive is what you have today. You get the big ones in the shuk, you get the little ones in the shuk, and a kazayas is a kazayas. Okay, kasaora. Now, what is the halacha of a saora? We have that with the dead sheretz. What other or a bone fragment from a corpse? Is also a kadasha. Sorry, kadasha is for a dead sheretz, because saora is a fragment of bone that's matame. Okay. Lo gedola v'lo katana ela beinonis zomid baris. It's the species called desert barley. Yeah. Kadasha. Now the adasha that we're talking about, that's for the dead sheretz. Okay, that's enough to be matame, even if you're just carrying it. Okay, lo gedola v'lo katana ela beinonis zomitris. So this is the Egyptian lentil, is your average sized lentil, and that's the shear for the for adasha. Kol metaltalin mevinis atuma beovi hamardea. Okay, we've seen before in ohalos where even a stick can convey tumah as an ohel if you hold it over, let's say you hold it over a grave, and then it comes in shadows over something else. Okay, but not to the extreme. It's still got to have a certain thickness, and that is with the thickness of an ox goad. So the ovi hamardea, the ox goad, that's the shear, the minimum shear for conveying tumah as a conveying tumah as an ohel. Lo gadol lo katan ela beinoni. It's the medium ox goad. Okay, what's the medium ox goad? Ezahi beinoni. So it comes down that actually the shear is a circumference of a tefach, which means pachot yoter that the diameter of this ox goad is a third of a tefach. Yeah. Next up, the amma. Okay, there are lots of shirim where we measure in amos. And the amma is taken technically as being from the base of of your elbow to the tip of your middle finger, like I'm doing over here. Okay, so they're from there to there. The amma that we're talking about is amma of a medium person, amma beinonis. Okay, that's obviously going to because amma is a measure that applies to you sort of universally. You've got to take a look at who is the standard for the amma, and the let me see if there's anything else in here. Okay, so they actually kept two amma measuring sticks in the temple, but in Shushan Habira. Now, in Shushan Habira is actually not in the city of Shushan Habira. we're talking about in a place in the temple, right? If you take a look in the commentary 767, in the second temple, there was a chamber built on top of the eastern gate of the temple courtyard. The exterior of this chamber was decorated with an image of the city of Shushan. This chamber was therefore called Shushan Abira. Okay, so it's like having a street called Rehov Yerushalayim. Oh, I live in Yerushalayim. No, you're not living in Yerushalayim. Or okay. So anyway, there were two sticks there. One in its northeastern corner, one in its southeastern corner. Okay, the one on Ishal Keren Mizrach is the one on the northeastern corner. Haisa Yisera al Shel Moshe Chatzi Etzba. It was more than the amma of Moshe. So Moshe Rabbeinu had an amma measure, but they made this one longer. She'al Keren Mizrach is Dromis Haisa Yisera Leah Chatzi Etzba, and the other one was more than that by another half hand breadth. Okay. Nimteis Yisera al Shel Moshe Etzba. So it was so this one was more than Moshe's by a full finger breadth. Okay. So why was one of them smaller than the other? Okay. And so when the temple paid artisans to do repairs or to do work for the temple, they would measure what they were taking by the small measure and return them by the large measure, to make sure that they would, if they're making an error, they're making an error in favor of the temple, so they shouldn't come to do me'ila. Okay. We always see this, that when you're dealing with the temple always comes out on top. And it should be enough for the artisans that Baruch Hashem they can advertise they're the providers for the temple, and they might make a small amount of money ultimately from doing work for the temple, but there's a big kavod in being able to do that for the temple, and then you can also advertise to everyone else that I do the stuff for the temple.
Well, how do they say the house always wins?
The house always wins. Yes. Yes. The bias. Yeah, they call it the bias. Rabbi Meir Omer Kol ha'amos hayu beinonius. So everywhere that we're talking about an amma, it's beinoni. That is the one that we've been speaking about. Chutz mi mizbach hazahav va'keren va'sovev v'hayesod. Says there were the measurements of the mizbeach, all of the measurements of the golden mizbeach and part of the measurements of the Mizbach HaOlah were actually measured by a smaller measurement. So you can see on the diagram on 771. Oh, by the way, do you have the same page numbering as me?
Yes, same.
Because I remember we had a slightly different edition. Okay, so you can see the vertical measurements. The base is an amma of 5 hand breadths, whereas the round ones have got the 6 hand breadths. So what we're saying is that the sovev was 5 hand breadths. Was 5 hand breadths of the smaller measure. Oh, sorry, of the larger measure up, and the ledge was only one of 5 hand breadths. So everywhere where we see the little squares, so according to Rav and Rashi, that all those square measures over there, those are the smaller measures of the amma. So you can have an amma, because if you take a hand from your elbow up to your middle finger, I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's kind of ambiguous. You've got a little bit more to play with. Do you take a 5 or do you take a 6? So it's not an exact measure. So some of them are taken as 6 hand breadths, and some of them are taken as 5 hand breadths. And Rabbi Meir specifies that the only place where you have the 5 hand breadths is in these 2 mizbachot. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. I mean, he agrees with all these places that Rabbi Meir said, but he adds more. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Amas habinyan shisha tvachim v'shel Keilim chamisha. But all of the utensils also were measured with five tvachim. So let's take an example. The Aron and the Shulchan. So all of these temple utensils were measured with the 5 hand breadth amma. So now you'll recall that there was a machlokes in Menachos about the size of the shulchan and how much how big the showbread ended up being on the shulchan, and it depends on whether the amma, because we know the amatzayim v'chetzi, it's 2.5 ammas long. So depending on how big the showbread is, the showbread is measured in tfachim. So it depends on how big your amma is in terms of tvachim as to whether or not you got a gap in between the rows. So now that you've seen this over here, you can look again in Menachos and see what the machlokes is there. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, to Yud Daled Vav. The metal cover or tene that one made into a mirror. The Rebbe Yehuda was a tahor, but the sage is tameh. A mirror that broke, if it does not reflect the greater part of the face, is tahor. Metal utensils contract tuma and become tahor when broken, and these are the words of Rebbe Eliezer. Rebbe Shua says they only become tahor when intact. How so? If one sprinkled upon the metal utensils and they broke on the same day, and he fashioned them, then sprinkled upon them a second time that day, they're tahor. These are the words of Rebbe Eliezer. Rebbe Shua says no sprinkling may be done before the 3rd and 7th days. And Arkuva, key that broke at the bend, as tahor. Yehuda rules a tame because one can unlock the door with it from the inside. And a gamma key that broke at the bend of its gamma is tahor. If it had teeth and holes, it is tame, and if the teeth were removed, it is tame on account of the holes. If the holes were sealed, it is tame on account of the teeth. If the teeth were removed and the holes were sealed and they broke into each other, it is tahor. And a mustard strainer in which 3 of the holes is at the bottom, broke into one another, is tahor. And a grinding funnel is of metal is tame. Wooden utensils. That's right. Next,
No, we're done.
I thought,
yeah, that's it. That's 3 Mishnahs.
And we have here Gimel Aleph.
Mm-hmm.
Measure of a whole that will render an earthenware utensil tahor is as follows: that which was rendered as food is measured as with olives; that which was intended for liquids is measured as with liquids; and that which was intended for both food and liquids we measured to it the more stringent measure of olives. A barrel of its measure is tuma is with dried figs. These are the words of Reb Shimon. Reb Yehuda says the measure is with walnuts. Reb Meir says it's measured with olives. A stew pot and a cooking pot, the measure was with olives, and a flask and a tefi, the measure was with oil, and a tartsur measure is with water. Reb Shimon says the measures of all 3 are with seeds. A lamp is measured with oil. Reb Eliezer says it's measured with a small peruta. The lamp whose mouth has been removed is tahor, and a lamp of unbaked clay whose mouth has been fired by the wick is tahor. A barrel that developed a hole in and one regard repaired it with pitch, and it broke. If the place of the pitch can retain a quarter log, it's tame. Once the barrel never lost its designation as a utensil. An earthenware fragment that developed a hole in when repaired with pitch, even though it can contain a quarter log, is tahor, since its designation is a utensil.
Lost its designation, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, and we are on to the chorus. There are 3 designated dates for the mess of animals: 15 days before Pesach, 15 days before Shavuos, and 15 days before Sukkot. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Azza says the 3 periods are the 29th of Adar, the 1st of Sivan, and the 29th of Av. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shimon say the 3 periods are the 1st of Nisan, the 1st of Sivan, and the 29th of Elul. Why did they say the 29th of Elul instead of saying the 1st of Tishrei? Because it is a holiday, and it is impossible to separate mice on a holiday. Therefore, they advance it to the 29th of Elul. Reb Meir says the 1st of Elul is the beginning of the year for the mice of animals, and Reb Azza says those born in Elul are tithed by themselves. All animals born from the 1st of Tishrei until the 29th of Elul combine for mice. 5 that were born before Rosh Hashanah and 5 that were born after Rosh Hashanah do not combine. 5 before the designated day and 5 after the designated day do combine. And if so, with regard to what is stated, that there are 3 designated dates of the mice of animals, that until the designated date arrives, one may sell or slaughter, but once the designated day arrives, they may no longer slaughter. However, if he did, he's exempt. How does one separate mice from them? He gathers them into a pen and makes a small opening for them so that 2 cannot exit at once. He then counts with a rod: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the animal which exits 10th, he marks with a red dye and pronounces this one as miser. If he did not mark it with red dye, if he did not count them with a rod, or he counted when they were crouching or standing, they are nevertheless counted for miser. If he owned 100 and took 10, and he owned 10 and took 1, it is not miser. Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yossi, says this is miser. If one of the counted sheep counted jumped back into their midst, they're exempt. If one of the animals designated as mice had jumped into their midst, they must all be left to pasture until they develop blemishes and may be eaten in the blemished state by their owners. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I think
Tomorrow is Arachin.
Arachin. Okay. And we have Sanhedrin, and we have Zion, no, Zion Yud Aleph. A sorcerer who performs a deed is liable, but not one who creates illusions. Kiva says in the name of Yeshua, two people may gather cucumbers, one of them gathers and one is exempt, while the other one gathers, the other is liable. The one who performs a deed is liable, the one who creates is an illusion is exempt. Ben Sora Amora, when someone does he become a Ben Sora Amora? From when he produces two hairs until his beard grows around the lower, not the upper, but the sages employ delicate terminology as it is written, if a man shall have a son, not a daughter, a son and not a man, a minor is exempt because he has not entered the realm of commandments. When is he liable? When he eats his a tartama of meat and drinks a half log of Italian wine. Rabbi Yossi says a manna of meat and a log of wine. If he ate a gathering for a mitzvah, or if he ate at the meal for the intercalation of the month. If he ate mice Sashani in Jerusalem, if he ate the veils of Terefas or abominable creatures or keeping animals, if he ate table for mice or rishon from which his truma had not been taken.
Skip the phrase in brackets.
Okay,
That's deleted. Yeah.
Table masturbation from which its truma has been taken, or mice shani and hegdish which has not been redeemed. If he ate something which is of a mitzvah, or something which is a transgression, or he ate, I'm sorry, he ate any food that is meat, but he drank any beverage other than wine, he does not become a ben sora ma'ora unless he eats meat and drinks wine, as it is said, he is a glutton and a drunkard. Although there is no proof to that matter, it's an indication of the matter as it says, be not among those wine bibers and gluttonous eaters of meat. If he stole from his father and ate in his father's house.
No, that's it.
Okay, that was it. We
Yeah, we're
finished.
done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have on to Sukkot. Sukkot is Daled Daled. How is the mitzvah of Lulav performed on the if the first day of Sukkot falls on the Sabbath, they bring the lulim to the temple mouth, and the attendants read the lulav from them and raise them upon the bench. But the elderly place theirs in a chamber, and they teach them to say, "My lulav is presented as a gift to whomever may come." On the morrow they rise early and come. The attendants saw the lulav before them, and they will snatch them, striking one another. When the basin saw that they were in danger, they ordained that everyone should take his lulav at home. How is the mitzvah of the lulav performed? There was a place below Jerusalem called Motzah. They descended there, gathered from their large willow branches, and came and stood again against the sides of the altar with their top drooping over the top of the altar. They blew on a trumpet, tekiah, trua, tekiah. Each day they would circle the altar and one time and say, "Please Hashem, bring salvation now. Please Hashem, bring salvation now." The Yehuda said they would say on a vow who brings salvation now, or that on that day they circled the altar 7 times. When they left, what did they say? They said, "Beauty is yours, O altar. Beauty is yours, O altar." They said they would say to Yahweh to you, and to altar, and to Yahweh to you, O altar. Just as it was performed on the week, they saw it was performed on the Sabbath, except they gathered on the eve of the Sabbath and placed them in the golden vessel so they should not wilt. If Yochanan and Baruch says they brought day palm branches and beat them on the ground at the sides of the altar, the day was called the day of the beating of the day palm branches. Okay.
Okay.
All right, and we have brachos. Okay. Okay. If one recited the blessing of a wine before the meal, he's exempted the wine drunk after the meal. If one recited the bracha over the paparet or before the meal, he need not recite any other blessing of the paparet after the conclusion of the meal. If he recited the blessing over bread, he is exempted the paparet, and one paparet, one does not exempt the bread. Shammai says he also not to any cooked dish. If they were sitting upright to eat, each one blesses for himself. If they recline, one blesses for all. If wine is brought to them during the meal, each one blesses for himself. After the meal, one may bless for all. He also recites a blessing over the incense, even though the incense is served after the meal. They served him with the savory to begin with and bread with it. He recited the appropriate blessing over the savory and exempts the bread, since the bread is now secondary. This is the rule. Whenever there is a staple of food accompanied by a subsidiary item, he recites the blessing over the staple and exempts the subsidiary. Okay, subsidiary.
Hey.
Okay, good. I got you.
Okay, and I'm going to run. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you.
See you in Mitzvah Shem Sunday.
Thank you. Bye.